Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In a future where time travel had become a reality, it was heavily regulated and restricted. The potential for disaster was too great. A single misstep could unravel the fabric of reality. John Carter, a seasoned time cop, had dedicated his life to ensuring that the rules were followed and that the timeline remained intact. He was one of the best in the business, known for his cold precision and unwavering commitment to the job. But even the most skilled officers could not predict everything. John had just completed another successful mission, apprehending a rogue time traveler who had attempted to alter the course of a minor historical event. The mission had been routine, almost too easy. He returned to the Time Enforcement Agency's headquarters, a sleek, high-tech facility that was a blend of steel and glass, reflecting the sterile efficiency of the organization. The atmosphere at the headquarters was unusually relaxed. It was Emily's birthday, and the team had planned a small celebration. Emily, a bright and ambitious young officer, had been with the agency for just under a year, but she had quickly proven herself to be a valuable asset. John admired her determination and intelligence, even if he found her youthful enthusiasm a bit grating at times. As the party got underway, John couldn't shake a feeling of unease. It was a subtle thing, a nagging sensation at the back of his mind, as if something was out of place. He dismissed it as paranoia, a side effect of spending too much time in the field, constantly on high alert. But when a minor explosion suddenly rocked the room, sending the team into a frenzy, John's instincts kicked in. He dove for cover, shouting orders, but the chaos was short-lived. He felt a sharp pain in his head, and then everything went black. When John woke up, he was lying in his bed at home. His alarm was blaring, signaling the start of a new day. Disoriented, he shook off the lingering sense of dread and went about his morning routine. But as he arrived at the headquarters, everything felt strangely familiar. The day unfolded exactly as it had before: the mission briefing, the routine check-ins, and finally, Emily's birthday celebration. And then, the explosion happened again. John found himself waking up in bed once more, the same day starting all over again. It took a few more cycles before John fully grasped the situation. He was stuck in a time loop. No matter what he did, every day ended with the explosion, and every morning began anew. His colleagues were oblivious, carrying on as if nothing was wrong, repeating the same actions and conversations as the previous day. John tried everything he could think of to break the loop. He altered his routine, avoided the explosion, even confronted his superiors about the anomaly, but nothing worked. The day always reset, and he was back to square one. The most frustrating part was that his memory remained intact while everything else reset. He was forced to relive the same events over and over, each day building on the knowledge he'd gained in the previous loops. It was maddening, like a puzzle with pieces that refused to fit together. As John delved deeper into the mystery, he began to suspect that the loop wasn't just a random glitch in time. There was a pattern to it, a sense of purpose. He noticed subtle differences each time, things that shouldn't have changed, like Emily's behavior. She seemed more aware, more cautious with each loop, as if she, too, was experiencing the same thing. One day, after what felt like an eternity of loops, John decided to confront Emily directly. He waited for the right moment, catching her alone in the agency's secure archives. "Emily, something's wrong," he said, his voice low but urgent. "We're stuck in a loop. Do you feel it?" She looked at him, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment, she didn't say anything, and John feared he had misjudged her. But then she nodded, her expression a mix of fear and relief. "I thought I was going crazy," Emily whispered. "I've been trying to figure it out, but I don't know what's causing it." John felt a surge of hope. He wasn't alone in this. Together, they might be able to solve the mystery. "We need to find the cause," he said. "Something is triggering the loop, and we have to stop it." Over the next several loops, John and Emily worked together, pooling their knowledge and resources. They began to notice patterns in the loop, certain events that seemed to trigger subtle changes. The explosion, which they had originally dismissed as a random accident, became the focal point of their investigation. They discovered that the explosion originated from a device in the agency's research lab, a prototype time travel stabilizer that had malfunctioned. It was a project Emily had been secretly working on, trying to improve the agency's ability to monitor and control time travel. The device was designed to prevent time anomalies, but instead, it had created a loop that trapped them in an endless cycle. Emily was devastated by the realization that her invention had caused the loop, but John was more focused on finding a solution. "It's not your fault," he told her firmly. "The important thing is that we fix this." They theorized that the only way to break the loop was to deactivate the device before it triggered the explosion. But every time they tried, they failed. The loop reset before they could reach the lab, or they were stopped by security measures put in place to protect the sensitive equipment. As the loops continued, John started to notice something else: his own role in the loop. He was the one who had authorized Emily's research, pushing her to find new ways to control time travel. His obsession with maintaining order in the timeline had indirectly led to the creation of the very anomaly he was now trapped in. The weight of this realization pressed heavily on John. He had always prided himself on being a guardian of the timeline, someone who prevented others from making catastrophic mistakes. But now he was confronted with the fact that his own actions had led to a disaster. The line between hero and villain was becoming increasingly blurred. John and Emily decided to take a different approach. Instead of trying to stop the loop from within, they would attempt to change the conditions that led to its creation. They began experimenting with the sequence of events leading up to the explosion, trying to find a combination that would prevent the device from malfunctioning. Each loop became a test, a trial and error process that took a toll on both of them. John grew more and more frustrated as their attempts failed. The endless repetition was wearing him down, chipping away at his resolve. He started to wonder if they would ever escape the loop, or if they were doomed to repeat the same day forever. But Emily refused to give up. Her determination was unshakable, and her belief in finding a solution kept John going. She insisted that there had to be a way out, a way to set things right. Then, in one of the loops, John noticed something he had overlooked before. A small, seemingly insignificant detail: Emily's watch. It was an old-fashioned analog watch, a gift from her father, and it was always set to the same time, 12:47 p.m., the exact moment the explosion occurred. "What's with the watch?" John asked one day, during a brief moment of respite between their attempts. Emily glanced at it, frowning slightly. "It's stuck," she said. "Has been for a while. I never bothered to fix it." But John couldn't shake the feeling that the watch was important. He examined it closely, turning it over in his hands. It was a simple, elegant timepiece, nothing out of the ordinary. But as he held it, an idea began to form in his mind. "What if the watch is connected to the loop?" he suggested. "Maybe it's not just a malfunction. Maybe it's a marker, something that ties us to this specific moment in time." Emily looked skeptical, but she had learned to trust John's instincts. "You think it could be the key to breaking the loop?" "It's worth a try," John said. "We've tried everything else." In the next loop, they focused on the watch. John brought it to the agency's tech department, where they examined it under a microscope. What they found stunned them: a tiny, almost imperceptible microchip embedded in the mechanism, one that emitted a faint but steady signal. The chip was a relic from a time travel experiment conducted years ago, an attempt to create a portable device that could anchor someone to a specific point in time. The chip had malfunctioned, becoming a time anchor that trapped Emily, and by extension, John, in the loop. The only way to break free was to deactivate the chip and reset the watch, but there was a catch. The process of deactivating the chip would erase all of Emily's memories of the loops, and possibly John's as well. They would return to the moment before the loop began, with no knowledge of what had happened. "It's the only way," John said, though the thought of losing everything they had been through was painful. "We have to take the risk." Emily nodded, though her eyes were filled with uncertainty. "I trust you, John. Whatever happens, I trust you." They carried out the plan in the next loop. As the explosion approached, John and Emily worked together, dismantling the watch and deactivating the chip. The moment the chip was disabled, a wave of disorientation washed over them, and the world around them began to blur and fade. When John opened his eyes, he was back in his bed. His alarm was blaring, signaling the start of a new day. But this time, it was different. The nagging sense of familiarity was gone. Everything felt real, grounded in the present moment. He arrived at the agency, where his colleagues greeted him as usual. There was no sign of the loop, no explosion, no repetition. Emily was there, too, but she showed no signs of remembering what had happened. She smiled at him, a friendly, casual smile, and went about her day as if nothing had changed. John felt a mix of relief and sorrow. They had succeeded, but at the cost of losing everything they had learned and experienced together. The weight of the loop was gone, but it left behind a lingering emptiness, a void where those memories had been. As he watched Emily go about her day, John couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss. They had shared something profound, something that no one else would ever understand. But now, it was as if it had never happened. Still, life went on. John resumed his duties as a time cop, ensuring that the timeline remained intact. The days passed, one after another, with no sign of the loop returning, but in the quiet moments, when he was alone with his thoughts, John would sometimes reach for his own watch, checking the time as if expecting something to happen. The watch always showed the correct time, ticking steadily forward, moving on, just like he was, and though the memories of the loop were gone, the lessons remained. John had learned the value of time, of each moment that passed. He had learned that even in the face of destiny, there was always a choice, always a way to find freedom, even if it came at a cost. He knew that the future was uncertain, that time was a vast, uncharted territory filled with potential dangers and opportunities. But he also knew that he would face whatever came with the same determination and resolve that had seen him through the loop, because in the end, it wasn't about the time that had been lost or the moments that had been repeated. It was about the choices he had made, the lives he had touched, and the future he would continue to protect, one day at a time. And as he looked out at the city, the sun setting on another day, John felt a sense of peace. The loop was over, but the journey was just beginning. And this time, he was ready for whatever came next.